Hey there, and welcome to a brand new series of Google Ads for chiropractors. So we're going to take a pretty deep dive in this video series covering a lot of different things: campaign measurement or campaign structure, campaign measurement, conversion tracking, ad group structure, bidding, keywords, ad copy. There's a whole bunch here that we're going to unpack. But in the beginning, we're going to start immediately by talking about conversion tracking. Why do we go there? Because it is the most important thing that you can do. Measurement is everything. If you're not measuring the right things on your website, then it's a very high likelihood that your campaigns are going to go in the wrong direction, right? So we need to make sure that we're measuring things that matter to the business. A lot of times we're talking about form submissions, we're talking about phone calls, we're talking about sales if you're an e-commerce company. This series is for chiropractors, so most likely you don't have an e-commerce component unless you're selling some equipment to your patients, of course. But most of the chiropractic accounts that we work with don't have e-commerce, so we're probably going to be focusing more on lead form generation, scheduling, and phone calls in terms of conversions. So conversions are really important for a lot of reasons. The first, of course, is just for your own sanity, knowing what's working and what's not working. This is your money, right? So this is an investment in your practice. And when you're looking at it at the end of the day, it has to make sense for your practice. It has to grow your practice. It has to bring in patients that are going to stick around for a while and purchase the right services that you offer. So long-term patient value is important. And when we're doing Google Ads, a lot of these ads can bring in different types of patients, right? So we have to be very careful about how we structure them. We have to be able to look at the measurements to see how the conversions are looking from a per acquisition standpoint, and just make sure that we're not overspending for keywords. Some of these keywords for chiropractors in select markets can be very expensive. The more competitors there are in your market, because Google is a bidding system, the higher the CPCs will be, right? So we have to be really careful and make sure that our measurement is working properly so that we get at a quick glance. And we do this with all of our clients. We're looking at reports every single week going, okay, are we hitting our metrics? Are we hitting our benchmarks? Do we need to make adjustments to the account? Do we need to bid more aggressively? Or do we need to back off the bidding to possibly, get more leads in the door, right? So there's a lot that we're looking at, and it starts with accurate conversion measurement. There's a second reason that this has to happen, and it's just as important. Conversion tracking on Google today is very different than it used to be. Okay, so now conversion tracking are success signals that get fed back into Google, and this is really food for the algorithm so that Google can learn what is success on the website. What are we looking for? So if a lead gets filled out, gets submitted, boom, thank you page. We're reporting that conversion action back to Google. Google will learn as we're getting, we're 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 of these per month or whatever. Google will start to learn, okay, this is the perfect customer for this advertiser, and I'm going to use algorithmic smart bidding to find more of those clients. And then at that point, because it's learned, you've trained the algorithm with proper conversion tracking, you don't even have to rely so much on keywords anymore. You can actually just use target CPA or target ROAS and other smart bidding options to be able to find the right patients to grow your practice. And that's really where the scaling happens, okay? So conversion tracking, can't stress it enough, super important for your own measurement, and also because these are success signals that get fed back into Google and really allow your business to scale. Okay, so let's take a look. I'm gonna pull up a chiropractic account out of Austin, and we're gonna talk about what is typical conversion tracking for chiropractors. Let me reduce this to give me some space here. So we're looking at here LiveSpring Chiropractic. Okay, so what do we have? So we have a phone number at the top. We have a schedule appointment button here. As we scroll down, we have another schedule appointment button. Scroll down, schedule time, 3 different scheduling buttons. Here's another schedule appointment button. And then there's most likely a phone number right here. Okay, so those are all items that need to be tracked. So anytime a client, wherever a client can contact you, a future patient, hopefully, that's what needs to be tracked, right? So when somebody fills out this appointment form, or somebody fills out a form where they're asking you questions or whatever it is, that needs to be tracked on your website as a conversion. Now the phone calls here, you can see there's a phone number here, there's a phone number at the bottom. So anytime somebody makes a call after they've clicked an ad, that needs to be tracked as well. And there's ways that we can do it. So we can use Google's phone tracking. So that's actually free of charge, and as part of Google Ads, you can actually just track the number through Google. Okay, so as long as you just have one number on your website, you can do that. If you're tracking multiple phone numbers for some reason, like if you have a bunch of different offices, then you're gonna have to use third-party call tracking, something like CallRail, to be able to track that. But in most cases, I think Google's tracking works pretty well. What happens is that when somebody clicks on an ad, the number itself swaps out for a Google tracking number, and then we're able to look at how long that call actually took place. And we can set the conversion action in Google Ads based off of how long a call should take place for it to be a valid conversion. So a lot of times we'll say like 60 seconds, right? And then that will tell us, are we again bringing in the right conversions that turn into patients for a variety of services that are offered. So phone numbers, form submissions, really important that we track those. So how in the world do we track it? So there's a couple different ways. Well, there's a lot of different ways, but two ways that we see most often is using the Google Ads conversion tracking code. I'd say 9 times out of 10, that's what we're doing. Then we can also use Google Analytics. So there's ways to track this through Analytics 4, for example, the brand new version of Google Analytics. We actually prefer to use the Google Ads tracking code because it gives you a fuller, broader picture of what's happening in the buying journey and the attribution window. GA4 is fine if you already have it configured, but a lot of times you're going to see more by using the Google Google Ads tracking code. And what we do basically is we will fire a little snippet of JavaScript code gets fired whenever a form gets submitted. Okay. Or when a phone call lasts a certain amount of time. Now, with the phone call tracking, we are harnessing the power of the Google Tag Manager. Okay, so Google Tag Manager is a free program that you can run on your website. If you're not running it now, I would highly recommend it. It's a single call to the Google Cloud, and you can run all of your tags in the GTM, the Google Tag Manager. So you can run your Google tracking, your Google Ads tracking. You can run your Facebook or the Meta Pixel tracking. If you're B2B, you could be running your LinkedIn Insights tag. You can run your Twitter tags. You can run all of your tags through the Google Tag Manager with a single call to the cloud. And that's our preferable way of setting this up. So it gives us a lot of flexibility. So for example, if I were to schedule an appointment here, right? So I could actually program the click on that button. Now that's not ideal because somebody could click that button and not fill out the form. So we're always looking to capture the form submission, like when it actually submits. And that could be through a thank you page, or it could be dynamic, just like submitting a form and then saying thank you dynamically. And then we're going to capture that event. When it happens, we do that through the Google Tag Manager. Okay, so there's the GTM is really a powerful tool. It's free of charge, and we would set that up for you, or you could set it up yourself if that's something you're comfortable with. But it is important for tracking. So that's number one. In addition to that, the GTM Google Tag Manager has a tracking code built in for phone numbers. So we create the conversions within Google Ads and then go into the GTM and configure the phone tracking through Google Tag Manager, and then that fires on your website as well. So it just makes it neat and tidy. Everything's in one place, super quick because it's like single call to the cloud to get all of your snippets of code. Instead of, typical websites will have a variety of code snippets that are getting called from all these different servers, which slows down your website, right? So there's a lot of value there to using the GTM. So that's a highly recommended route for setting up your conversions. And we're going to go into, I'm not going to take you all the way through setting up conversion tracking. In fact, do a search if you're watching this through the YouTube channel, do a search for GTM, Google Tag Manager, because I've done videos on this, on how to actually set up tracking through the Google Tag Manager. And there's a whole separate video on that because it is, there's a lot there to unpack, right? So in this video, we're going to talk about just setting up conversion actions in Google Ads, but I'm not going to go through the whole thing. We're just going to go through the form and like the questions that Google will ask you as you're setting it up, okay? So let's get into that now. What we're looking at here is just basically a test account. This is the account that we use for Brand Rocket. And you can see I already have a bunch of conversions. Now, by the way, how did I get here? So I went into Tools and Settings, and then I selected Conversions from the menu, right? Google is in the middle of transitioning to a new interface at the time I'm recording this, so it could look different. Things never stay the same, unfortunately, within Google. So, menus will change, options will change, but it's generally speaking, like most of this should remain pretty accurate. But under Tools and Settings, we go into Conversions, okay? That puts us on a page here where you'll see existing conversions that are already in the account, and they are all classified by what they are. So you're going to see here, we have customer acquisition, we have submit lead form. Okay, so I actually configured a bunch of these for the lead form, or forms that exist on the Brand Rocket website in this case. We also use unbounce for landing pages, so there's one that's configured for unbounce. And then we do call tracking. So we track calls from the website. We track calls from the unbounced landing page. Okay, so there's also call tracking, by the way, that's set up within the ads themselves. So all ads have extensions, or assets as they're called now, with a phone number, and especially relevant to mobile, and they're tracked there. Okay, so they wouldn't be in here, but there is a third way of common tracking, and that is actually through the ad unit itself. You have contact form submissions, book appointments. So we have a Calendly meeting, so we have like where somebody can schedule, put themselves on my schedule, and then that gets tracked here as well. This one is older because it goes through UA. This Google Analytics UA no longer exists, so we track that differently now. So it can actually happen right through GA4 as an event, and that's how we do it these days. Okay. In fact, here it is. Here it is, GA4 invitee meeting schedule. That comes from Calendly right out of GA4. So there's a lot of different ways or a lot of different tracking methods for a variety of forms, and it depends on what it is, right? Schedulers, contact forms, calendar requests. There's a whole bunch of different things, but this is at the end of the day, it's if you know what you're doing, it's fairly easy. In the beginning, if you don't know it, then of course it's going to take some time. And by the way, we do this stuff all day long, and setting your conversion tracking up is definitely part of the service that we offer in terms of like management of Google Ads, and we know GTM, the Google Tag Manager, and GA4. We're all trained and certified, so know it very, very well, and be happy to help you out. So let's go through the process of actually setting up a conversion action. Okay, so let's just pretend that we're setting one up from scratch. So I'm going to say new conversion action. And we're going to say, okay, where is this? We're going to put it on, this is something we're going to track on the website. So by the way, let me just go back. So the choices are we tracking it on a website, sales, clicks, page views, signups? I would not recommend tracking page views, at least as a primary conversion. I'll talk about that here in a second. You could track actions on your app, installs, purchases, actions, and then phone calls, calls to a number on your website, etc. Or you can import conversions. You can import them right from GA4 or from Salesforce, anything that gets sold offline, especially if there's like a lag time. So somebody clicks on an ad, and maybe your business has a really long sales cycle, and they buy something a year later, right? So how do you track that? Well, you track it through the collection of offline leads, and then you upload them back into Google Ads. Whenever somebody clicks on an ad, in Google, there's something called a GCLID. There's other measurements as well, but mainly GCLID, GCLID. It's a Google click. It's an identifier. It's a long alphanumeric character. It gets passed through the URL when somebody clicks on an ad, and that's the attribution, right? So now, if you're logging leads into a CRM, for example, you log that GCLID into your CRM, you'll actually be able to see, okay, what ad created this lead. It goes all the way down to that level, like the actual ad unit that showed up, and what keyword and what ad group and what campaign. Really, really helpful. Okay, so CRMs like HubSpot do this automatically. If you are collecting leads and your sales cycle is really long, then you're going to have to, log that into your CRM. This is where, somebody that knows coding can, and it's not that big of a deal, but they can grab that GCLID and add it to your CRM in one of the fields. And then when you sell somebody something, and if there's a long sales cycle, you upload it back in later on, and then it matches whatever was sold to that client. Now, chiropractic, we're not talking about long sales cycles at all. Generally speaking, now I guess it could vary based off of what somebody is going through. If they're a little hesitant in the beginning, they're like, I've got these pains or whatever. I'm not sure if chiropractic care is for me. They submit a form. Maybe they have a conversation. Maybe they kind of like ignore it for a while, or 6 months later, then they come back and then actually will call you or submit another form or whatever. So it is trackable over a long period of time, but thankfully most of these happen within 30 days from what we're seeing. Okay, so I just wanted to share with you a little bit of information about how the tracking happens within Google. Okay, so if it's within that 30-day window, a lot of times we're just tracking it automatically. If it happens over a longer period of time, we can still track it, but it's usually like a manual upload where we're taking that data out of a CRM and importing it back into Google Ads, which is why you have that import option. Okay, so we're going to say website, and we will continue. Now, Google is going to ask for a URL because it wants to see, what do we have on the website currently. Okay, so I'm just going to add my website in here. I'm going to do a quick scan. And let's see what it says. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. But we are going to override. We're not going to, even if it made recommendations here, we're going to say, no, we're going to set this up manually. Okay. So enhanced conversions. So this is when it's a way to actually increase the accuracy of your conversion measurement. So if you're collecting information such as email addresses, it can actually improve the measurement optimization. So I would have that checked. Add conversion manually is what we want here. Now this is where we will configure the conversion action, and then we're going to get a piece of JavaScript code that gets added to the website, and again, usually through the Google Tag Manager. Okay. First thing we do is categorize it. What are we doing here? So if it's a form, let's just pretend, we're going to pretend that it's a lead form on your website. We're going to say, okay, it's a submit lead form. Now, if it doesn't fit any of these, then we can always say other. Okay. But in this case, we're going to say either book appointment or submit lead form, which is fine. Conversion action. So optimization option, is this a primary or is it a secondary? Really, really important distinction here. So primary conversions are used for bidding optimization. So this is going to inform Google as to what success is, and Google is going to use this data to find more of the patients that you need to grow your practice. For your main points of communication, phone calls, form submission, scheduling, primary. Okay. Anything that's like if it was a download or a guide or something like that, I would set them as secondary most of the time. Okay. There are exceptions, but most of the time you're going to add those other types of form submit. I'm sorry, data assets, things that you're providing that's like a download or something for them to read would be a secondary. Okay. This again, lead forms, scheduler, phone calls, primary. We use that for bidding optimization. All right. I'm just going to say test conversion. All right. Same value. Okay, so this is more important, when we're talking about like e-commerce. But every single patient has a value, right? And there's hardly anybody who's actually taken the time to figure this out. But if you do, it's really valuable. Like, what is a patient worth over time on average? If there's a patient sitting on a shelf, what's the most that you would pay to acquire that patient? What is the value? Right, so that allows you to be able to go, okay, how much am I investing here on advertising? I don't want to spend more than the value I'm receiving back. So if you have a value that you can plug in here, that's great. But you don't need one. You don't have to say, you say don't use a value, right? I'm going to say use the same value, and in this case, I'm going to say worth 100. Okay, so I'm just guessing here. How many conversions count per click or action? So every or one. Since this is a form submission, you want to go one. Otherwise, if they keep submitting it, it's going to just keep adding and adding and adding, right? Attribution conversion windows. Okay, 30 days. You can do 30. So conversions can happen days after someone interacts with your ad. Select how much time after someone interacts with your ad to count conversions. So on 30 days, if somebody clicks on your ad and then next month, 40 days later, they finally submit a form or place a phone call, it would be invisible because it's outside the conversion window. If it happens the same day or within 30 days, it's going to count and it's going to be properly attributed. And you can go as far as 90 days. Okay, so 90 days max. By the way, this is a lot further than Facebook. Facebook has a 7-day window. So if you're running ads on Facebook, keep that in mind. If somebody clicks on an ad and doesn't respond to you until day 8, they become invisible, right? So these are really important selections. This would be engage view. So this is click. This is engage view. I just leave these as is, view through conversions. Attribution, there are different models of attributing ad clicks, and currently there's only 2. So there used to be a whole bunch of them, and Google has phased these out. We can do last click based off of whatever was clicked last. That gets full credit. I like data driven. It uses a formula that's, I can't even explain it, but it properly attributes where that sale or that lead came from based off of a full funnel view. So people don't just buy in a linear fashion. They're usually jumping around, and they might click on a Google ad and then a Facebook ad and then search you organically. And there's a lot of different ways that they can get you before they fill out the form. And data-driven takes all of those touch points into consideration. Okay, I would leave it as data-driven. All right. So once this is submitted, we will, at that point, let me see here, submit the page. Okay, and when we submit the page, we receive something like this, which kind of, just summarizes everything that we selected on the prior page. But down here, you'll see tag setup. Okay, so it's install your tags yourself, email the tag, or use the Google Tag Manager. So again, everything that we do is through Google Tag Manager. It's just make your life easier. Just use the GTM. Using the Google Tag Manager, then we use the GTM to configure a conversion ID and a conversion label, and we fire this tracking code through the Google Tag Manager when somebody submits the form. Now, when somebody submits the form can mean a lot of different things depending on the implementation. It could go to a thank you page, or it could dynamically create a thank you window. There's a lot of different implementations. We'd have to actually look at your website, right, to figure that out. So this is where it gets a little tricky, and you have to be tech savvy in a way. If you're really lucky, or if you have the ability just to forward a form to a thank you page, that's probably the best way from an ease and simplicity standpoint. So a lot of these the form software that'll be part of a website have the ability to, once somebody submits, to redirect to a URL. So in that case, you would redirect to a thank you page, which could be your website URL /thank you. And then on that that's where you would trigger that conversion, this conversion code to fire on that particular page using the Google Tag Manager. Now, if you're not using the Google Tag Manager, then we're talking about the G tag and firing the G tag on that thank you page. But again, the GTM is the way to go on that. So I would highly recommend doing that. Okay. So that's the installation. That's a creation and installation of conversion tracking code. And that's really it in a nutshell. Okay, so what have we covered here? We talked about conversion tracking, why measurement is so vital and so important. It's not only vital because you need to know how well your marketing is doing from an investment perspective. You need to know your cost per acquisition, for example, right? So by the way, I don't think I talked about. So we're looking at the primary metrics that we look at in terms of conversions are conversion numbers, cost per conversion, and conversion rate. And these are the KPIs that we'll look at to determine, is this working for the business? And a lot of times we're comparing those numbers to long-term patient value. Like, what is the value in return? If you know your long-term patient value, you can say to yourself, then all of a sudden you go, okay, the most I'm willing to pay to acquire this patient is X amount of dollars. And when these bids start getting competitive, and in certain markets they get super competitive, it gives you the peace of mind of knowing, okay, I can bid up to X dollar amount and still be profitable. And if somebody hasn't taken the time to figure that out, they're not gonna feel comfortable about it, right? They're gonna see something like a $50 per click, cost per click, and be like, whoa, no, I'm not gonna spend that. And then they're gonna miss out on tremendous opportunity just because they haven't taken the time and done the math and figured out, okay, actually I can spend that up to a certain amount and then reap the rewards over time, because that patient equates to $5,000 of revenue or whatever that number is. So, I highly recommend really thinking about your numbers. And then measurement is key to be able to compare what you're actually pulling in versus, because Google Ads is the cost per Google Ads is going to change by market. It's an auction, so prices go up and down. But you need to have a baseline. You need to know, you're going to spend up to a certain amount of money for certain keywords, and you get that by doing proper conversion measurement. Second thing is this, to repeat again, conversion tracking, conversion actions, those signals get fed back to Google. So Google will learn over time what success looks like in your account. So really, really important stuff. I hope you found value in this. Did I miss anything? Let me just add one last thing at the end here. If your account has been reporting the wrong conversions, and I do a lot of audits, I've literally done like thousands of audits, and I see this a lot where the conversion tracking is just set up by somebody who didn't know what they're doing, right? So they're measuring conversions on page views, or they're measuring conversions on just things that don't even make any sense. So what's happening there is that you're misinforming the algorithm. You're totally misinforming Google. So Google is then like going out and just looking for anybody who can generate page views, right? It does exactly what it's told. So if that's happening in your account, there is a way to flush out those conversions. So you can actually wipe out that data and start from scratch. And I would highly recommend that if you've been misreporting and misinforming the algorithm with crazy conversion measurement such as page views. Okay, so just wanted to mention that at the end. Again, if you need help with any of this stuff, we do it all day long, so be happy to help you out. Okay, conversion tracking is really, really important. It's the step one that we go through every single time before we start building out the campaigns, which is why I wanted to talk about it right off the bat. All right, if you found this content to be helpful, please subscribe to the channel, like it, and we'll be making more of it. So we'll see you in the next video. Thank you.